The Great Hall of the was unlike anything the gathered diplomats had ever seen. Crystal walls rose hundreds of feet into the air, glowing with soft colors that shifted and changed based on the emotions of those inside. Representatives from 23 different species stood in neat rows, their bodies tense with barely hidden fear. Some had scales that flickered nervously. Others had antennae that would not stop twitching. A few released stress chemicals into the air that made everyone around them even more anxious. Commander Lisa Grant stood among them, wearing her Earth Diplomatic Corps dress uniform. She was one of only 3 humans in the entire hall, and by far the most junior diplomat present. Her assignment to this mission had been a surprise to everyone, including herself. Earth had only achieved faster-than-light travel 40 years ago, and humans were still considered newcomers to galactic politics. Most species viewed them as curious but ultimately insignificant. The ambassador leaned toward Lisa, his blue skin glistening under the bioluminescent lights. He had 7 eyes arranged in a circle around his head, and right now all 7 were fixed on the empty throne at the far end of the hall. "You should not have come here," he whispered through his translator. "Your species does not understand what happens tonight." Lisa kept her expression neutral. "I've read the briefings." Briefings. They made a sound that might have been laughter or might have been disgust. "Your briefings cannot prepare you for the Queen. Nothing can prepare anyone for the Queen." She had heard the stories, of course. Everyone in the galaxy had heard the stories about Queen of the Dominion. She was over 300 years old, ancient even by the standards of long-lived species. Her mind had grown so vast and so powerful over the centuries that simply being in her presence could overwhelm weaker consciousness. And the communion ritual that sealed every alliance treaty with the required 1 diplomat to spend an entire night cycle in her presence chamber, connected mind to mind with the Queen herself. The survival rate for this ritual was technically 100%. No one had ever died during a night with Queen, but survival and remaining intact were 2 very different things. "The delegate lasted 4 hours, they continued. He emerged unable to speak any known language. His mind had been restructured in ways that no medical technology could repair. He spends his days now staring at walls and humming songs that no one recognizes." Lisa had read about that case. She had also read about the ambassador who had emerged from the Queen's chamber, convinced that she was a small insect living on a leaf. The delusion had never faded. There was the representative who had gained the ability to perceive 11 dimensions simultaneously, but lost the ability to recognize faces, including his own. And there were dozens of others, all of them changed in ways both subtle and profound. "The Queen does not harm them intentionally," they said. "That is what makes it worse. She simply exists, and her existence is too large for most minds to process. Imagine trying to pour an ocean into a cup. The cup does not choose to break. It simply cannot contain what is being poured into it." The crystal walls suddenly blazed with deep crimson light. A vibration ran through the floor, through the air, through the bones of every being in the chamber. Lisa felt it in her teeth, in her spine, in the deepest parts of her brain. It was not sound exactly. It was something more primal, more ancient. It was presence. Every alien delegate dropped to the floor in various postures of submission. Some pressed their faces against the crystal tiles. Others curled into balls with their appendages tucked tight. The beside Lisa flattened himself so completely that he seemed to merge with the floor itself. Lisa remained standing, not out of disrespect or defiance, but simply because no one had taught humans the proper submission postures. She had tried to learn them from the briefing materials, but her human joints did not bend in the required ways. Queen entered the hall. She was enormous, easily 18 feet tall, her body a graceful fusion of forms that human biology had no reference for. Parts of her resembled insects, with a gleaming carapace of deep purple and gold. Other parts moved like liquid, flowing and reforming with each step. 6 arms extended from her torso, each one moving independently, each gesture carrying meaning in a language Lisa could not read. A crown of bioluminescent tendrils rose from her head, pulsing with patterns of light that seemed to contain entire conversations. But it was her eyes that captured Lisa completely. They were compound structures, thousands of individual lenses working together, and they held depths of intelligence that made Lisa feel very small and very young. 3 centuries of accumulated wisdom looked out from those eyes. 3 centuries of memories and experiences, and knowledge that humans could barely imagine. And beneath all of that, Lisa saw something she had not expected. She saw weariness. She saw isolation. She saw the particular kind of loneliness that came from being so far above everyone else that no one could reach you. The Queen's mental voice filled the chamber without passing through the air. It simply appeared in every mind simultaneously, overwhelming all other thoughts with its presence. The tribute must be paid. The ancient treaties require one representative to spend the night cycle in communion with the crown. This is the price of alliance. This is the cost of protection. Who among you will honor this obligation? Silence. The most complete silence Lisa had ever experienced. Not a single delegate moved. Not a single appendage twitched. The fear in the room was so thick that Lisa could almost taste it, a metallic bitterness on the back of her tongue. She understood their terror. The alliance was essential to galactic stability. Their technology was centuries ahead of most species. Their military power was unmatched, and their protection was the only thing standing between the civilized galaxy and the horrors that lurked in the dark spaces between stars. Every species needed this alliance. Every species benefited from it, but no one wanted to pay the price. Lisa thought about the colony ships currently traveling through protected space, carrying 300,000 human settlers to new worlds. She thought about the trade agreements that fed Earth's growing population. She thought about her younger brother serving on a research station at the edge of known space, dependent on patrols for safety. She thought about all the delegates around her, frozen in their fear, waiting for someone else to sacrifice themselves. Lisa stepped forward. "I volunteer." The words left her mouth before she could reconsider them. They echoed through the silent hall, small human sounds that seemed almost absurd in this place of alien grandeur. Every compound eye and sensory organ in the room turned toward her. She felt the weight of their attention like a physical force pressing against her skin. Queen's massive head tilted slightly. Those ancient eyes focused on Lisa with an intensity that made her breath catch in her throat. The bioluminescent tendrils on the Queen's crown shifted to a new pattern, one that Lisa's translator could not interpret. "The human speaks," the Queen's voice resonated through Lisa's mind. "How interesting." The gathered diplomats stared at Lisa as if she had just announced her intention to walk into a star. The ambassador rose from his flattened position, all 7 of his eyes wide with disbelief. His translator crackled as he spoke rapidly in his native language before switching to standard galactic common. "The human does not understand what she has done. She cannot possibly understand. Her species has only been spacefaring for 4 decades. They have no experience with neural communion. They have no training in mental defense. She will be destroyed." Other delegates joined the protest. The representative pushed through the crowd, his 4 arms gesturing frantically. His species had lost 3 ambassadors to the Queen's communion over the centuries, and he clearly did not want to witness another mind being shattered. "This is not bravery," he said to Lisa, his voice tight with urgency. "This is ignorance. The Queen's consciousness spans 300 years. Her mind contains more information than the entire human species has accumulated since you first learned to make fire. When she opens herself to you, when the communion begins, you will be exposed to everything she is. Everything. No human brain can process that much data. No human mind can survive that kind of contact." Lisa listened to their warnings. She appreciated their concern, but she had made her decision and she was not going to take it back. Earth needed this alliance. Her people needed her to be brave. Queen watched the commotion with what might have been amusement. Her compound eyes tracked the arguing delegates, her bioluminescent crown pulsing with colors that shifted from deep purple to bright gold. When she finally spoke again, her mental voice cut through the noise like a blade through silk. The human has volunteered. The tribute is accepted. The communion will proceed at moonrise. The protests died instantly. No one argued with the queen. No one ever argued with the queen. The delegates who had been trying to save Lisa now looked at her with something between pity and respect. They believed she was walking to her doom, but they could not deny her courage. The hours between the announcement and moonrise passed in a blur of preparation. Lisa was taken to a small chamber where attendants helped her change from her dress uniform into a simple white robe. They explained in halting standard common that the communion worked better when there were no barriers between participants, and while they could not expect a human to be comfortable with full nudity, the robe was thin enough to allow some energy transfer. A healer examined her brain patterns using equipment that looked like crystallized light. He made concerned noises as he reviewed the results. "Your neural density is very low," he said. "Your species processes information slowly compared to most galactic races. This may actually be an advantage. The Queen's consciousness might flow around you rather than through you." "That sounds hopeful," Lisa said. "It is not. It means you may survive the night with your basic functions intact, but the communion itself will likely fail. The Queen will not be able to form a true connection with you. The treaty will be technically fulfilled, but the deeper alliance that the ritual is meant to create will not form." Lisa considered this. What happens if the deeper alliance does not form? They will honor the treaty. They always honor treaties, but they will view humanity as a lesser species, incapable of true partnership. Your people will receive protection and trade access, but you will never be equals in their eyes. You will never be trusted with their real secrets or welcomed into their inner circles. This was not the outcome Lisa wanted. She had volunteered not just to survive, but to succeed. She wanted to see humanity as worthy allies, not as pets to be protected. And "What would I need to do," she asked carefully, "to form a true connection?" The healer's antennae twitched in surprise. "You would need to open yourself completely to the Queen's consciousness. You would need to let her in without resistance. Every other species has tried to shield themselves, to protect their core identity from her overwhelming presence. They all failed, and many were damaged in the process. But if you could somehow remain open while staying intact, if you could let her in without losing yourself, the connection would form." Has anyone ever done that? Not in living memory. Perhaps not ever. The Queen's mind is simply too vast. Opening yourself to her would be like opening yourself to the universe itself. Most beings cannot comprehend infinity without going mad. Lisa thought about this for a long time. She thought about her grandmother back on Earth, a woman who had lived through wars and famines and disasters of every kind. Her grandmother had a saying that Lisa had never forgotten: "The strongest walls are the ones you never build." When moonrise came, Lisa walked to the Queen's presence chamber with her head held high and her heart beating faster than she wanted to admit. The chamber was unlike any room she had ever seen. The walls curved in ways that seemed to defy geometry, folding in on themselves and opening up simultaneously. Soft purple light filled the space, emanating from no visible source. The air was thick with strange scents, floral and metallic, and something else that Lisa's human nose could not identify. Queen waited at the center of the chamber. She had removed the ceremonial armor she had worn in the diplomatic hall, and without it, she looked somehow more alien and more vulnerable at the same time. The intricate patterns on her carapace were fully visible now, swirling designs that seemed to tell stories in a language older than human civilization. "You may still withdraw," the Queen said. Her mental voice was different here, softer and more intimate, without the booming authority she had projected in the public hall. I have felt many minds break against mine over the centuries. I take no pleasure in it. Lisa settled onto the cushioned platform that had been prepared for her. The material was warm against her skin, almost alive. I am not planning to break, Your Majesty. They all say that. The delegate was certain of his mental strength. The representative had trained for decades in meditative techniques meant to protect him. They all failed. Maybe they failed because they were trying to protect themselves. The Queen's compound eyes shifted, focusing on Lisa with renewed interest. Explain. The healer told me that everyone who comes here tries to shield themselves from you. They build walls and barriers and defenses, but walls work both ways. If you are trying to keep something out, you are also keeping yourself locked in. Maybe the communion fails not because your mind is too vast, but because they are too closed. Was quiet for a long moment. The bioluminescent patterns on her crown slowed to a gentle pulse. You are suggesting that you will not resist. I am suggesting that I will not fight. I did not come here to battle you, Your Majesty. I came here to meet you. To meet me? The Queen seemed to taste the words. No one has ever said that to me before. They come to survive. They come to endure. They come to prove their species worthy through suffering. But no one has ever simply come to meet me. Lisa smiled. It was a very human expression, one that the Queen had probably never seen before. Where I come from, meeting someone new is usually considered a good thing, maybe even something to look forward to. The Queen's antennae curved in a pattern that Lisa's translator could not interpret, but which she somehow understood as curiosity mixed with something warmer. Then let us meet, human. Let us see what happens when someone does not fight the tide. The first touch of Queen's mind was gentle, almost hesitant. Lisa had expected an overwhelming flood, a tsunami of consciousness crashing against her awareness. Instead, she felt something more like a question, a knock on a door, a hand extended in greeting. She opened herself to it. The sensation was unlike anything she had experienced before. Memories that were not her own began to flow through her awareness. She saw the as it had been 3 centuries ago, when was young. She felt the warmth of the royal nursery, thousands of eggs nestled together in chambers of living crystal. She experienced the terror and wonder of hatching, of taking her first breath in a world so much larger than the egg that had contained her. These early memories were small enough for Lisa to hold. They were personal and intimate, the kind of memories any being might have. A favorite food, a beloved sibling, the first time seeing the stars from the surface of her world. Lisa found herself smiling as she experienced them, charmed by the glimpse into a childhood so different from her own, and yet so recognizable in its essential nature. Then the memories grew larger. Coronation, the weight of the crown settling onto her head, not a physical crown but a psychic one, a bond that connected her to every mind across the empire. Lisa felt the sudden expansion of awareness, the moment when Young stopped being an individual and became something more. The responsibility, the isolation, the terrible burden of knowing that millions of lives depended on her decisions. Lisa did not pull away. She let the memories flow through her, experiencing them without trying to hold onto them. It was like standing in a river. If she tried to grab the water, she would drown. But if she simply let it pass around her, she could remain standing. The Queen's surprise rippled through their connection. Lisa felt pause, examining her more closely. You are still here. The Queen's mental voice carried undertones of wonder. Others have fled by now. Others have begun building their walls. I have no walls to build, Lisa replied. I am just me. I cannot be anything else. But who are you? I feel your presence, but I cannot find your edges. Most minds have clear boundaries. Yours seem to go on forever. Lisa thought about this. Maybe human minds are different. Maybe we do not have edges because we never learned to define them. We are a young species. We have not had time to decide what we are and what we are not. The Queen considered this, then she shared more. Lisa experienced the First War, fought against an enemy whose name had been deliberately erased from history. She felt the Queen's grief as thousands of her people died in battles that lasted decades. She witnessed the development of weapons capable of destroying stars, and the terrible moment when had to decide whether to use them. She lived through the aftermath, the guilt and the trauma and the slow healing that stretched across generations. These memories were heavier. They pressed against Lisa's consciousness with almost physical weight, but she did not resist them. She accepted them as she would accept the stories of a friend who had lived through hard times. She did not try to carry them herself. She simply listened. "How do you do this?" the Queen asked. "How do you take in so much without breaking?" "I am not trying to take anything. I am just being here with you." Being here, such a simple concept, yet no one has ever done it before. As the night continued, Lisa began to share as well. She had worried that her memories would seem trivial compared to the Queen's vast experiences. What could a human life offer to someone who had witnessed centuries of galactic history, but seemed genuinely fascinated by everything Lisa showed her? Her childhood in Minnesota, the endless fields of corn stretching toward horizons that seemed impossibly far away. The bitter cold of winter mornings when her breath would freeze in the air. Her grandmother's kitchen, warm with the smell of baking bread and strong coffee. The old woman's hands, wrinkled and strong, teaching Lisa how to knead dough with patience and love. "Your lives are so short," the Queen said. "You have so little time, and yet you fill that time with so much meaning. Every moment matters to you because you have so few of them." "We do not think of it that way," Lisa said. "We just live. We love what we can while we can. We try to leave the world a little better than we found it." "And do you leave it better?" Lisa thought of her brother, of the colony ships, of the research stations pushing the boundaries of human knowledge into the unknown. "We try. We fail sometimes. We hurt each other and make mistakes and do terrible things. But we also build hospitals and write songs and raise children who might do better than we did. It is not perfect, but it is ours." The Queen was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her mental voice was thick with an emotion Lisa could not quite name. "I have lived for 300 years. I have ruled an empire that spans 1,000 worlds. I have made decisions that shape the fate of entire species. And in all that time, I have never felt what you feel right now. This simple contentment, this acceptance of imperfection, this peace with being small in an infinite universe." "You could feel it too," Lisa said. "You just have to stop trying to be everything." "I am the Queen. I must be everything for my people." "Then be everything for them. But not right now. Right now in this room you can just be, just you. The rest of the universe can wait until morning." The Queen's presence trembled around Lisa. It was such a small permission that Lisa had offered. Such a tiny freedom. But for someone who had carried the weight of an empire for 3 centuries, it was a gift beyond measure. Let go. Not of her power or her responsibility or her identity. She let go of the need to be vast. She let go of the isolation that came from being too large for anyone to touch. She let herself be simply present, simply here, simply one consciousness meeting another in the soft purple light of the presence chamber. And Lisa held space for her, not with strength or power or mental barriers, with simple human presence, with the willingness to be with someone who was suffering and not try to fix them or change them or save them, just to be there. The Queen began to weep, not with tears because did not have tear ducts, but with waves of emotion that rippled through their shared connection. 300 years of loneliness poured out of her. 300 years of being too much for anyone to approach. 300 years of being feared and revered and obeyed but never, ever understood. Lisa did not pull away. She opened herself wider, letting the Queen's grief flow through her the same way she had let the memories flow through her. She did not try to stop it or fix it or make it better. She just stayed. And in staying, she did something that no being in the galaxy had ever done before. She gave the queen of the place where it was safe to break. The night deepened around them, but neither Lisa nor the queen noticed the passing of time. They had moved beyond the formal structure of the communion ritual into something neither had expected. They were simply talking, sharing stories and thoughts and questions the way friends might do on a long evening together. Told Lisa about the burden of the crown, not the political burden which was heavy enough, but the personal one. As queen, she was connected to every mind in the empire. She felt their joys and sorrows, their fears and hopes, their births and deaths. Every day, thousands of her people died of old age or accident or illness, and she felt each loss as a small wound in her own consciousness. Every day, thousands more were born, and she welcomed each new life into the collective awareness. It never stopped. It never paused. She had not known true silence in 300 years. "That sounds exhausting," Lisa said. "It is what I was born for. It is my purpose. But yes, it is exhausting in ways that words cannot describe. Do you ever wish you could put it down, even for a moment?" The queen's antennae curved in a complex pattern. "I used to dream of it. In the early centuries, I would sometimes fantasize about being ordinary, about being just another, going about her life without the weight of millions pressing against her mind. But those dreams faded long ago. I have been queen for so long that I cannot remember what it felt like to be anything else." Lisa thought about this. "My grandmother used to say that the heaviest burdens are the ones we choose." She meant it as a compliment. She meant that the things we sacrifice for willingly become part of who we are. But she also used to say that even the strongest back needs to rest sometimes. "Your grandmother sounds wise." She was. She lived through hard times and came out the other side still able to laugh. I think about her a lot, especially when things get difficult. She taught me that strength is not about never bending. It is about bending and not breaking. The queen reached out with one of her 6 arms, a gesture that seemed almost unconscious. Her limb hovered near Lisa without touching her. "May I?" asked. Lisa nodded. The queen's appendage was warm against Lisa's shoulder. The touch was strange but not unpleasant, firm and gentle at the same time. Through the physical contact, their mental connection deepened. Lisa felt presence more clearly now, not as an overwhelming force but as a companion, someone standing beside her rather than towering over her. "You are remarkable," the queen said. "Your species is remarkable. You have no psychic abilities, no neural enhancements, no evolutionary adaptations for mental contact. And yet here you are, sharing consciousness with me as easily as breathing. We have a lot of practice connecting with each other. Humans are social creatures. We survive by forming bonds, by working together, by caring about people outside ourselves. Maybe that is why this feels natural to me. I have spent my whole life learning to be present with others. The other species who came before you were also social. Many of them had evolved sophisticated methods of communication and cooperation, but they still could not do what you are doing." Lisa considered this. Maybe it is because they had too much training, too many techniques, too many expectations about what the communion should be. They came prepared to fight or defend or endure. I came with nothing except myself. You came with yourself. That is more than most beings realize they have. As the night continued, shared something she had never told anyone. She shared her loneliness. Not the abstract loneliness of being queen, but the specific, personal loneliness of being. She had outlived everyone she had known in her youth. Her clutchmates were gone, their lives burned out after the normal of 150 years. Her original advisors had passed away generations ago. Even the architecture of her childhood had been replaced. The buildings she had loved demolished and rebuilt so many times that nothing familiar remained. "I am surrounded by millions," she said, "and I am utterly alone. They worship me, they fear me, they depend on me, but none of them know me. How could they? I am too vast now, too strange. The child I once was disappeared so long ago that I can barely remember her. All that remains is the queen. She is not gone, Lisa said. I can feel her. She is still in there underneath all the centuries and all the responsibility. She is scared and tired and wants someone to see her. That is very human, you know. Or maybe it is just universal. Maybe every conscious being, no matter how powerful, just wants to be truly seen. The queen's mental presence flickered with something that felt like hope. You see me. I see you. Not the queen, not the ruler of 1,000 worlds. You, the little who hatched from her egg and looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The purple light of the presence chamber pulsed softly around them. The strange geometry of the walls seemed less threatening now, less alien. It was just a room. They were just two beings sharing a night together. Then did something that shocked Lisa to her core. The queen lowered her massive body until her face was level with Lisa's. Those compound eyes, ancient and vast and terrible, looked directly into Lisa's simple human eyes. And in them, Lisa saw tears. Not physical tears, but the reflection of tears. The memory of what it had felt like to cry, long before the crown had burned such weakness away. "Thank you," the queen said. "Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for letting me." They sat together in comfortable silence. Lisa leaned against the queen's side, feeling the warmth of the alien body beside her. It should have been strange. It should have been terrifying. Instead, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. "The other diplomats will not understand what happened here tonight," said eventually. "They will examine you when you leave. They will scan your mind for damage. They will be astonished when they find none. Will you tell them the truth?" "What is the truth?" "That a human came to my chamber and instead of trying to survive me, she befriended me. That for the first time in 300 years I did not feel alone. They would not believe it. They would assume I had damaged you in some way they could not detect." Lisa laughed. It was such a human sound, bright and warm in the alien space. "Then let them wonder. Let them write their reports and make their theories. We know what happened. That is enough." The queen's antennae curved in that smile pattern Lisa was beginning to recognize. "Yes, we know. That is enough." Outside the presence chamber, the first light of dawn was beginning to touch the crystal spires of the capital city. The night was almost over. The communion ritual was almost complete, but both Lisa and knew that something had changed that could not be changed back. A connection had formed that transcended politics and treaties and the vast distances between their species. They had become friends. And in a galaxy full of ancient powers and terrifying forces and incomprehensible mysteries, that simple friendship might prove to be the most remarkable thing of all. The twin suns of the rose slowly, painting the crystal walls of the presence chamber in shades of amber and gold and soft pink. Lisa stretched her tired muscles and realized with surprise that she had spent the entire night awake. Normally, such sleeplessness would have left her exhausted. Instead, she felt strangely energized, as if the communion had filled her with something beyond mere rest. Queen rose to her full height, her carapace catching the morning light in a way that made her seem less like a terrifying alien monarch and more like a work of art. The bioluminescent tendrils on her crown had shifted to a warm gold color that Lisa had not seen before. "It is time," the queen said. Her mental voice was different now, warmer and more familiar. "The diplomatic hall will be filled with those waiting to see what remains of you." Lisa stood and smoothed her white robe. "Should I pretend to be damaged, stumble a little, maybe drool?" The queen made that deep rumbling sound that Lisa now knew was laughter. "You may do as you wish. I suspect the truth will cause more chaos than any pretense could." They walked together through corridors that had terrified Lisa the night before and now seemed merely strange. Attendants stopped in their tracks as they passed, their compound eyes wide with shock at the sight of their queen walking beside a human as if they were equals. Lisa caught fragments of their mental chatter through her fatting connection too. They could not understand what they were seeing. This was not how the communion ritual was supposed to end. The diplomatic hall was packed when they arrived. Every delegate who had been present the night before had returned, along with dozens more who had heard rumors and wanted to witness the aftermath firsthand. Lisa saw the ambassador near the front, his 7 eyes scanning her body for signs of damage. The representative was there too, his 4 arms clasped tightly in front of him, his expression a mixture of hope and dread. The hall fell silent as Queen entered with Lisa at her side. The crystalline walls shifted to a deep blue color that Lisa's translator identified as formal occasion. Every alien in the room dropped into their submission postures, faces pressed to the floor, appendages tucked tight. "Rise," the Queen commanded. Her mental voice boomed through the chamber with all the authority it had held the day before, but Lisa could hear the warmth underneath it now. "Rise and witness." The delegates rose slowly, their eyes fixed on Lisa. They were looking for the signs they had seen so many times before: the vacant stare, the trembling limbs, the broken speech patterns, the shattered mind trying desperately to reassemble itself. Lisa smiled at them, a perfectly normal, perfectly human smile. The whispers started immediately. Shock rippled through the gathered crowd like waves through water. The ambassador pushed forward, his translator crackling with urgency. "This is impossible. She is intact. She is completely intact. How is this possible?" Queen's antennae curved in amusement. The human representative has fulfilled the tribute obligation in full. The communion was completed successfully. The alliance between the Dominion and Earth is sealed. "But she is not damaged," another delegate called out. "Every previous tribute has emerged changed. This human shows no signs of mental alteration whatsoever." "That is correct." Then the communion failed. The true connection was not formed. The Queen turned her compound eyes toward the delegate who had spoken, a tall being with scales that flickered nervously under her gaze. "You presume to tell me what occurred in my own presence chamber." The delegate immediately dropped back into submission posture. "No, Your Majesty, I apologize, I spoke out of turn." "You did, but your confusion is understandable." The Queen turned to address the entire assembly. "What occurred last night has no precedent in the history of the communion ritual. Commander Lisa Grant of Earth did not resist my consciousness. She did not build walls against me. She did not try to endure or survive or prove herself through suffering." The hall was completely silent now. Every being present was holding their breath. "She met me," the Queen continued, "simply and honestly, without fear or pretense. She opened herself to me completely, and in doing so, she gave me something no tribute has ever offered. She gave me companionship." More whispers, more shock. The word companion was not one associated with the Queen. It implied equality. It implied friendship. It implied things that no species had ever dared to suggest were possible with the ruler of the Dominion. The alliance with Earth is therefore not merely sealed. It is elevated. Humanity will be granted full partner status in all agreements. They will have access to technologies and territories previously restricted to species with centuries more experience. And Commander Lisa Grant will serve as permanent ambassador to the court, with privileges no none has ever held. Lisa blinked in surprise. This had not been part of any plan. She had volunteered for the communion hopping to preserve Earth's existing treaty, not to transform humanity's entire relationship with the most powerful empire in the galaxy. "Your Majesty," she said carefully, "I am honored, but I am not sure I am qualified for such a position." The Queen's mental voice softened, becoming private between just the two of them. "You are qualified because you are you. That is all the qualification needed." In the weeks that followed, the changes rippled outward from the like rings from a stone dropped in water. Word spread of the human who had spent a night with the Queen and emerged not only intact, but elevated to unprecedented status. Other species began to look at humanity differently. These newcomers, These primitive beings, with their short lives and their simple minds, had accomplished something that ancient civilizations had failed to achieve for centuries. Earth's diplomatic corps was flooded with requests from other species wanting to understand how humans had done it. Lisa found herself explaining the same thing over and over again. There was no technique. There was no secret. She had simply been willing to be present, to see another being clearly, to offer connection without demanding protection. Some species understood, others did not. But slowly, gradually, the galaxy began to change. The communion ritual was revised based on Lisa's experience. Instead of sending a single tribute to endure the Queen's overwhelming presence, species could now send delegations trained in what became known as the human approach. They would come not to survive but to connect, not to prove themselves through suffering but to offer themselves through openness. Not all of these attempts succeeded. Some minds were still too closed, too defended, too afraid to truly let another being in. But enough succeeded that the Queen's loneliness began to ease. She had friends now, not subjects or terrified delegates, but genuine friends who saw her as a person rather than a power. Lisa returned to the often. She and would spend long evenings in the presence chamber, not in formal communion but in simple conversation. They talked about everything: politics and philosophy and art and the strange differences between their species. Lisa told the Queen about snow and coffee and the sound of rain on a metal roof, told Lisa about stellar nurseries and the songs that black holes sang and what it felt like to be connected to a million minds at once. On the anniversary of that first night together, gave Lisa a gift. It was a small crystal grown from the walls of the presence chamber itself. Inside it, preserved forever, was a single drop of the bioluminescent light that had surrounded them during their communion. "So you will always remember," the Queen said. "When you are far from here, when you are surrounded by your own kind, you will have a piece of that night with you." Lisa held the crystal up to the light. It glowed with the same warm purple she had come to associate with safety and friendship and home. "I do not need a crystal to remember," she said, "but I will treasure it always." In the vast and terrifying galaxy, full of ancient powers and incomprehensible dangers, humanity had found their place, not through strength or technology or the ability to survive overwhelming force, through something much simpler and much more profound, through the willingness to see others clearly, through the courage to open themselves without defense, through the simple human gift of being present with another being and saying, without words, "You are not alone." The Queen of the ruler of 1,000 worlds, most feared being in 3 galactic sectors, had spent 300 years surrounded by trillions and utterly isolated. Then a human stepped forward, and everything changed.